Welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight Archive. I'm Christian Colorful Kremling.
And I'm Jimmy Lightsong. Today we are diving into chapters 26 through 40 of Warbreaker. So if you have not read Warbreaker before, you definitely don't want to be here because we do talk about full book spoilers. And also all of the Stormlight Archive published stuff. You do not want to be around for this. So go read that and come back. For everyone else, welcome back. Christian, part 2. Warbreaker. How are you doing though? Like outside of Warbreaker, like are you good?
Outside of Warbreaker, it's utter turmoil and destruction. Everything's falling apart, and this book is the only thing keeping me together, mate. So let's not go there. No, I'm fine. It's okay. I just had to get up early today, and this coffee is about the only thing keeping me present in this moment here. And I just want to say, dude, give us some more credit. Chapter 21 to 40. We're absolutely.
Wait, what did I say? 26?
26, mate. We did so much more work this week. We are.
Oh, you're right. It was
grifting.
21.
Yeah,
it was 21. You're right.
Because I remember yesterday freaking out because I was like, 20 chapters. I can just bang that out. And then I physically saw how much of the book that was, and I promptly freaked out.
We did a poor job of separating these up. Like, remember we talked this week kind of about it because you were on the opposite side of it. This time I was a little ahead of the game. You were behind. You procrastinated, but we were going to do this in 2 episodes, and I'm glad we did not. Because 20 chapters, and folks, if you're not aware, like I read a ton of other stuff because I run a YouTube channel, and then I also have a Song of Ice and Fire. So I have a lot of stuff I have to get through on a weekly basis to kind of keep up. And then Christian's busy with everything in life. And it turns out reading 250 pages a week of what's supposed to be a side project or a side read is quite a bit. It's a lot. So we learned a lesson, I would say.
Never again.
Never ever again.
Well, look, I am busy, but like after a long, hard day's work, you sort everything out, then you go home, you do your household jobs. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really want to read Warbreaker. I kind of wanted to, grind to diamond in Overwatch just real quick. So I did kind of mess up, and then I had to read this book. But hey, we've learned a lesson here on Lost in Roshar. We're more of a 2 chapter a week kind of people. I think that's how we roll. It
keeps it light enough to where, like, one, it closely reading something for me is more enjoyable, right? Yeah. If it's something that I'm going to do a reread on. And also, it just makes it a little less like work.
Yeah. It feels like a reading assignment, but not to say I didn't enjoy it. But I do procrastinate. This is a bad habit of mine, and often it has served me well for our show because I read the chapters really fresh, maybe like an hour before we record. But it's not possible when you're doing like 20 chapters.
Yeah, I think also just the way that we've done it with 2-3 chapters a week gives us an opportunity to like take time to like ruminate on things and pay attention to very small details. Whereas we're trying to capture the essence of a group of chapters on top of trying to connect it back to Stormlight Archive, because this is a Stormlight Archive podcast. And with that, there are connections, but I'm a little, I don't know about you, I'm a little sad because there's not as much here. Like, obviously we know the Vivenna and Vasher and Blood, and the Nightblood, right? I was kind of hoping to find a little bit more, and it's not here. It's just not.
Well, if it is, it's very light and esoteric, because I'm kind of with you. It's like these 3 guys are coming in.
As far as we know, how about that?
Yeah, as far as we know, it could be crazy.
It could be.
But how are you, man? How was your week?
Pretty good. Really busy with work. I had my first ever golf lesson this week because I'm trying to find another hyperfixation. I'm trying to toying around with the idea maybe of retiring from jiu-jitsu after like 7.5 years of it. I've been kind of thinking about moving on from that hobby, and I want to try golf.
Is it like an injury thing that you want to move up
Been pretty banged up. I got caught in a leg lock a couple weeks back and my knee popped, and it hasn't felt very good since. I have bad knees anyways. I need to really get one of my knees at least replaced, but I have to wait till I'm older. So it is like one of those things where I feel like a catastrophic injury is just around the corner. But also I'm just really bored with it. to be honest.
Fair enough.
I've been doing it for a long time. It's not because I'm so good that no one can beat me or no one. No, I'm challenged every week. I mean, we have people who are, newer that are just the level in the sport has grown tremendously, so, but I'm just bored, man. I'm just bored. And there's this sunk cost fallacy where I'm like, all right, I'm a purple belt. I want to get a brown and then a black belt. But if I'm not enjoying it, do I really want to stick around another 6 years to get a black belt? Like, and what does that really mean at the end?
It feels very common now. I feel like everyone's doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu is extremely popular, and it's because it's really fun. It is fun, but there's this there's a narrative that it is extremely good for you, and there's now been kind of a counter push to this, saying it is exercise. However, your fingers, your joints, and your ligaments are probably going to have damage over time. It's rare not to have an injury. How about that? I'll say that. So yeah, for me, it's kind of turned into just really fun cardiovascular because I lift 6 days a week and I need cardio. So that's been the cardio thing. And I just really don't want to go back to the Stairmaster, I think, at the end of the day. But we're trying golf. We're going to give golf. Also, it's something I can do with my wife, which I really like. She can golf with me and we can have fun. She did jiu-jitsu for a bit, but it really wasn't for her. Yeah. So it would be nice to be able to spend some more time with her. Plus, being outside is nice. I want to be outside more. I'm inside all the time reading and editing videos or coding or doing whatever. So it's an opportunity to kind of get out of the house more. That's a really long-winded answer for how my week was.
Hey, man. I'd love to hear it. And I'm just imagining you on the golf cart.
We're going to turn up on the golf cart, bro.
Tony Soprano style.
We're going to be bumping Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar on the 9th hole. Sea walking.
Hey, man. Whenever we meet, I'll challenge you to switch sports. 18 holes. Bring it on, mate. I'm an absolute gun at golf on Switch Sports.
Oh, okay. For a second, I thought you were about to tell me that you were a golfer, and I didn't know this. I was like,
well, I used to go, like, my dad golfed when I was younger, and I used to, like, accompany him in the golf cart, and I would do a few putts and stuff. But I've never learned how to drive. But I had a golf obsession as a kid because of my dad's interest in it. But I've never actually, like, as an adult, given it a go. I feel like it would be just very therapeutic teeing off.
I think enraging is another word because, like, I just putted the first week and I was like, man, this is already pissing me off. Like, I'm already getting mad, which is a good thing because when I get mad, I get stubborn and then I want to
you want to get better, right?
Yeah.
Well, my new endeavor has been art, as in drawing and painting. This has been my new hyperfixation because, like, I mean, I'm a great appreciator of art, and I've been great at filming and taking photos, but actually, like, drawing and creating something myself has been, nothing I've ever tried before, and I'm trying, and it's also very difficult. But you do a little bit every day and you get a bit better. Maybe I won't need any Stormlight art anymore. I can just create anything I wish. But it's tough.
I would admire that. I mean, and being able to create anything from your mind is so impressive to me, whether it be writing or poetry or songs or visual art, of course.
Yeah.
Even be able to make a film or a picture come to life is so impressive to me. It's not something I possess, unfortunately. I'm not very good at that. So kudos to you, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I'll draw a sweet image of you screaming at the 9th hole on the green.
Hey, I've seen your artwork for me, bro. Remember whenever you photoshopped my face on every Stormlight cover and then inserted my name, The Way of Nuts?
Yeah,
the Nuts of Things.
I'm gonna do that.
Nuts of Radiance.
Oh man, yeah, Nuts of Radiance was actually
Nutbringer. Rhythm of Nuts. Dude, those covers went hard.
Wind and Nut, or Nut and Truth. Actually, Nut and Truth is way better. Yeah, we'll release those.
You need to put them on the screen. Like, they need to be a part of the rotation.
Yeah, we should do that on, like, our we've missed it, but, like, on our April 1st episode, instead of, like, the animated backgrounds, it's just you in the Stormlight
different
covers.
Scenes.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so good. Do we have a Sanderson update this week?
I feel like I heard something on Bookborn, who's a good friend of ours. She had an Instagram story talking about how he might buy the Evermore Park. I think it's called Evermore. It was the failed RPG park that was supposed to be like you go to the park and experience it like an RPG, and you get these quests and stuff. It turned out to be a complete way. Like it's not what it's supposed to be, and it's right next to where he lives. And supposedly he bought like all the land around this place. Now, folks,
Really?
I'm dealing with like half information here. I'm just going off the cuff. So if I'm wrong about some of the stuff, forgive me. But essentially what I understand, he's acquiring land around Evermore Park, and there's people are wondering if he's going to buy Evermore Park and then make that into like a Cosmere Park or something.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
But the problem with this place, and this is what Bookborn said, is like Evermore is not like a completed park that you would buy and repurpose. It's not finished. Like they never finished it. It's essentially like props, like empty houses, and like there's no real rides. I mean, there are no rides from what I understand. So like it would take like hundreds of millions of dollars to make it into a functional theme park. So the other idea is that maybe this is going to be the place where he ends up putting some of the new buildings they had talked about, like where people can come and visit the bookshop and Dragonsteel and whatnot. So
yeah, I was like, I don't know if we're at theme park level yet. You know,
no. And for how much money that stuff cost, it would not work. However, what could be coming, which would be neat, is if he is looking for a place that people can tour and come see and visit, you know, the mecca of Dragonsteel. This is an opportunity. Maybe he does like wax museum or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like you can have presentation and some stuff that's really unique there, and maybe in time, you know, hey, we got this whole lot back here we haven't developed yet. Now we're going to do something.
Right. Okay. And they'll have the little Lost in Roshar inn, and it'll just be us sitting fireside.
It's going to be the Pure Lake plunge, and it's going to be me and you on the camera with our hands. It's going to be great, dude.
Oh, mate. Monday.
Kremling combat where you put on a Kremling helmet and hit each other with jousting sticks.
God. Yeah, it's like those, you know, those dinosaur outfits people wear where like the top half is just flopping around. Yeah, 2 Kremling outfits like that to the death.
That could be fun.
The death.
I want to see some mortality. I want to see people go down.
I want to see a Kremling, underground Kremling, like fighting ring in Wind and Truth. That's what I want to see.
Like Fight Club.
Yeah, like it cuts to a dingy little room and they like release their Kremlings into the ring.
You know, I wanted to ask you this because we were talking about golf and whatever. Does Stormlight Archive have a sport in it? I feel like I remember a scene of some kind of like recreational activity, a game / sport, but am I wrong?
You talking about the bridge runs? Kind of like, you know, just
that's
dodge
bleak. That is bleak.
It's like, do you have this game from when you're in school, Bull Rush? Isn't Bridge Run's just a big game of Bull Rush?
What's Bull Rush?
It's like, you know, you play it as a class when you're in elementary or primary school. So there's like 2 people in the middle of the field, and you've just got to run to the end. And if you get tagged, now you're in, and it just gets more and more tough to get to the other side.
I think I remember this, but I might be making up a memory. I might be chat GPTing a memory here.
Well, anyway, I don't think there is a sport. I think
there isn't.
Things are too full on. Well, we saw a little bit of this in Warbreaker, right?
Yeah, there should be a sport though.
Lightsong was playing a little song. No, not a song, a sport when they're throwing the balls and trying to get it near to a point, and he's like, I don't know why I'm getting so many points. He somehow was good at it. I don't know.
He's got a lot going on in this section and trying all types of new things or old things, I guess, if it's from his past self. But I think there's some downtime with soldiers. And when soldiers have downtime, they either play cards, gamble, or play a game. So, Sanderson, you need to make a game. You have to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you know what I thought when Lightsong was like with these guys and all these gods are just chilling, playing cards and eating? I thought of Giselle Dan Luther at the Agriont. With the boys. That's what I was thinking about, on the fresh lawns. And then because of that, I kept reading Grimaced as Grimaced, like Stephen Pacey.
Yeah, that's his only fault as a narrator, Stephen Pacey, is that he can't say Grimaced.
I like how he says Grimaced. It's like he's improved the word.
He's trolling is what he's doing.
I'm Googling sport in Stormlight Archive. I feel like this.
I think I just fabricated in my mind that one time where everyone's just kind of hanging around and downtime they did it, but like it is realistic. Like I think about like Black Company and Malazan and hell, even A Song of Ice and Fire is like tournaments and stuff, you know?
Yeah, and like the classic Quidditch as your made up sport, which is fun. Man, I wanted to play Quidditch so bad as a kid. So
yeah,
good.
Quidditch was lit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and it's like just the chance of death. Like Quidditch was no joke.
Quidditch is like American football.
Yeah,
Dude, American football. We're talking a lot about sports today.
yeah.
American football, people used to get their spines severed. I didn't know you could do this, or like sprained or something, and like it literally killed people. Like 18 died this season in the NFL in 1912, and I'm like, who legalized this?
Watch some Aussie rules footy or some rugby, dude. We're still in the dark ages here. We don't have any equipment. We're just here to kill each other in Australia. It's crazy. Good. You guys at least wear like pads and helmets.
Well, there's a whole dispute about whether it actually helps or makes it worse because people feel more confident running at things at 240 speed. So,
oh my gosh,
I just think that like with all the Stormlight abilities, a sport with these people would be sick.
Well, trust me. By the time we get to like modern day Stormlight, whenever that happens, it'll be like the sports league. It'll be like a sports anime. And
I want this like, big court scene with Adolin because, you know, he's the Lincoln lawyer of this thing. And I want him in there, and I want it to be a dispute about people who have radiant powers and don't have radiant powers. Like, should they be in the same league? Should they not? Like, it's steroids is what I'm thinking. It's like a steroid dispute. You know what I mean? Like, people have argued for many years that sports should have a steroid league. And I agree.
The Stormlight League.
I want Kaladin juice to the gills. I want him on that stuff that makes his head grow.
That would be so sick, dude. Like each order has their own team. That would be so great. Or like
that's what I'm saying.
Like
right
you could
there.
have little team comps.
Yes.
Oh man, I love this. Let's do it.
Yeah, and then you can make a trading card game around that sport, and then I will spend money on it.
Just give me Overwatch, but with like Cosmere characters, and I'm done.
That would work.
I'm done, mate. How good would that be? Just throwing coins like a Mistborn? That'd be sick.
That would be kind of sick.
Yeah. That seriously, and like edge dancers like running around like Lucio, just wall riding everything. Come on. That'd be so good. Sorry, guys. I'm really back into the Overwatch addiction. Like I'm deep.
I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah. I'm just like, Jimmy, let's wrap this up. I've got to, you know.
Well, as soon as this is done, I'm going to play Valorant for 5 hours and get really mad. So right, I'm with you. Hey, I guess we should talk about these chapters, right?
Oh, just before we do.
Okay.
I snuck in a poll of the week real quick.
Wait, what? When?
Jimmy's unsubscribed from the channel.
I'm not. I just haven't been on YouTube because I've been playing Valorant.
All right. I trolled a little bit on this poll.
Oh, no.
But I wanted to see the power of Nightblood, if it lived on through the poll. So the question was, what is the best aspect of Warbreaker to you? The magic, the characters, the setting, or just Nightblood? And
I did see this and I voted in it. I don't know why I forgot about it because I voted for Nightblood.
Okay. Well, Nightblood was the clear winner, 44%. Magic, 24%. Characters, 25%. The setting, 7%. And the comment saying, Christian, that's not fair to make Nightblood its own section. And I said, I knew like that. This is what happens when you have your own channel, guys. You can just make crappy polls, so you can talk about Nightblood. Like, sorry, I just feel like Nightblood is such a standout. He kind of deserves it. Why not?
I think it's interesting that the setting was so low, but the magic and the characters were so high. Because I think for me, those three are really tight on this.
So interconnected, you know.
And that's why his stuff is great. That's why his books are good. But the setting's sick, guys. The setup and geography, and then them having to do these crops, and then there's other countries which is above the northern pass that we don't get too much information about. Like, I'd like to see more of that. I think that this world actually has a ton of potential in a sequel to really be broadened and turned into, like, you know, proper epic fantasy. Really,
yeah, I agree.
I've been reading Guy Gavriel Kay's Lord of Emperors, which is his second book in the Sarantine Mosaic duology. And I realize, and I know Sanderson's a big GGK fan. I honestly feel like Warbreaker is a Sanderson book that it feels kind of inspired by a GGK novel, because GGK likes to set up a region. He'll set up like a whole area, massive, but he'll really focus in on like one or two of the states or fiefdoms or whatever it might be, right? And he will then play with the different political alliances around it, and like you hear about other things, but you don't get it brought in. So there's a sense of that the world is bigger than what we're seeing. I do feel that in Warbreaker. I feel like the setting has the opportunity to blow up, and that's so much of GGK is like. I'm like, man, I wish you wrote more books in the series. Like, Guy Gavriel could have turned a Sarantine Mosaic into a 5 or 6 book series. Probably he didn't. He wrote 2, which is why it's awesome. But you're always like, dang, I want a little bit more, and I always want a little bit more in Warbreaker as well. Which is interesting. I also have another, speaking of other fantasy things, I was very surprised to see that Michael Moorcock praised this book very highly. He really, really liked this book. And if you are not familiar with Michael Moorcock, he's the one that did Elric and also the Eternal Champion. He's wrote a lot. Hawkwood. There's bazillion things that he's a legend, you know, one of the best living fantasy authors today. And he, of course, has a very special sword that does remind me of Nightblood. And I wonder if maybe that was one of the, maybe Sanderson said, hey, you know, Nightblood is kind of a nod to Elric. Right. Would you check this out? Or maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but Michael Moorcock had nothing but praises to say. Yeah. I mean, I think he had like 1 or 2 little critiques, but he was very complimentary of Sanderson. And the reason why that's outstanding is because Michael Moorcock is really mean. he is super mean to people.
There's nothing like that kind of praise from those people. You're like, oh, I've done it.
He wrote an essay just absolutely dunking on Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. And then when he was pressed on it, the rumor is when he was pressed on it, he goes, I skimmed him. I didn't even really read it. Like, he's just, you know, he had worked with George R. R. Martin very closely. And then when George blew up, he was like, oh, I love George, but his series is just a soap opera. I hate it. Like he just always has something bad to say. And he's kind of a jerk at times. And for him to just unanimously praise like a new figurehead in the fantasy genre was shocking to me. So, hey, Sanderson, you got the Michael Moorcock seal of approval. Very few people do.
What I wanted to say, because when you're talking about the setting, I was perusing through some of the annotations, and Sanderson was talking about adding a map in the book and why he didn't do it, because he's like, a rainforest needs to be placed where like very specific conditions would make up a rainforest, right? But he wanted to put it in a place where it shouldn't exist. So that raised a whole bunch of different questions to me, because they talk about the rest of the world being so like deserts and mountains and all these different regions, and it feels like this area of Hallandren is somehow it reminded me of Shinovar, where it's like, this is a big oh, how'd this get here question. So that feels like that will be, you know, addressed at some point in the next book. Like,
and there's got to be like an entry point for people coming from their Cosmere world hoppers, right? Like, there's always a place. Like the Pure Lake is what I'm thinking of, but Shinovar is another great example, because that's where the humans came in at. So like, maybe the rainforest is that.
Yeah, because they talk about the tears of Edgley, this plant where they get all the dyes from. It just feels very something happened here to set up this really like magical area. So all the groundwork is laid there, but we don't really have time to delve into it in this book. But it's cool it's cool, guys. If you've been reading this, check out Sanderson's done an annotation for every single chapter, and you learn quite a bit about the process. And he's very reflective. He's like, this chapter was a bit too long, but you know, what can you do? It's cool to have that.
I didn't even know this existed until you told me right before we recorded. So I've been like kind of opening them up as we're talking. Yeah. And I like annotations, especially from someone who is so like structured as Sanderson is. Very interesting to see just some changes that he make. Like Trellides, by the way, used to be called Treaties. My editor didn't like the name, so I swapped it. I wanted a good, strong scene where we could see that Siri made the decision to keep her hair in check. And then he's also talking about Vivenna moving into different roles and whatever else. But also, I like the fact that he tries to explain what he wanted to do in the scene. Like, I hope this is what came across. This was my goal. I did well doing this. Maybe I didn't do so well doing that. It's actually, if you're a writer or interested in the writing process, I would recommend. This is great. I kind of want to go back through the old one, other chapters we read and read the annotations.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do that as well. I think Warbreaker was a big old experiment for Sanderson, because I think he wrote a lot of it on live streams as well, like in real time. I think if you go way back on his channel, you can just see him on like a Word doc typing this thing, and
Wow.
it's. I feel like it's still on his website for free. Like it just felt like a big old experiment in the writing
How
world.
interesting, because there
Yeah,
are so many authors now that are doing like a live writing. So, for instance, the best example is The Wandering Inn. I don't know if you heard about this, but
yeah.
it's a series. So I didn't know this, but apparently, like, patrons get first access, and they literally watch the Google Doc as the author writes. That is insane.
That would trip me out, because there's a bunch of people saying, "Oh, change this word to this word." Like,
You know
the
how
amount
much?
of backseat
I know I'm a
driving.
jerk. I know I'm a jerk. I
But
just go, well, what about the editing process?
yeah. Where's that tier?
I don't think it happens. I think hey, all the
I
power to
see.
it. I think it's a really neat way of doing it. I had
Yeah.
no idea Sanderson did that with this. That's really cool to know.
Ahead of his time. He's always like, I mean, he's got his YouTube channel. Like he does things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And he pushes the envelope in terms of interaction quite a bit.
Yeah.
The last person we got sort of this much footage from was George, but that's because he had the show. And if he didn't have the
Show and
show, we wouldn't.
interviews.
Yeah, lots
Like,
of
it's a very
interviews.
different, it's a different thing, because Sanderson, I mean, most authors aren't that transparent. There's a little bit of like, let's keep the secret sauce recipe close to the chest type deal. You hear them ask certain things about their craft in interviews, and they aren't very forthcoming. I've seen this with multiple authors. Like, I love Robin Hobb, but I always felt like she's a little bit secretive when it comes to her writing.
Yeah.
And she's not the only one. Cormac McCarthy is another. He's famous for never talking about his writing, really, except with Oprah at one point. But Sanderson takes it to a whole nother level. Another guy that does a lot of interviews with anybody is Steven Erickson, which I'm so thankful for, because just hearing how someone crafted the Malazan world is very fascinating. But Sanderson's doing a whole nother thing. Like, he's literally a YouTube personality, and still churning out books. He's not, Patrick Rothfuss has kind of stopped writing and is a Twitch streamer now. And it's like one or the other, it seems, with him, whereas Sanderson's kind of just doing it all and giving you a window into what he's doing.
I like, as a procrastinator and someone who struggles to order tasks in priority, I admire the hell out of Sanderson. Like, to do all that takes a lot of discipline, which I'm trying to possess.
It'd be sick not to have depression.
How good, right? And with it, oh man, I wish I could have used that as a like Hallandren transition.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
Speaking of sad boys,
speaking of sad boy, Lightsong's having a bit of a personality crisis in this middle section. He stole the show for me.
Yeah, he absolutely steals the show. He this whole section, folks, which we're kind of just talking freely about because we can't recap every single thing. I mean, we kind of start out with Lightsong feeling like there's secrets being kept from him, and then him going into trying to figure out the things of his past, and he's feeling conflicted. But Lightsong kind of tries a little bit of everything, doesn't he? He tries he was with clay pots or whatever, and then he's like, "Give me that. I can learn how to juggle." And he's trying to juggle. It's just really hilarious. And the big thing near the beginning of this is that Vasher finds the secret compartment in what's that lady's name? Mercy Star. In her place, they find the secret underground thing, and then Lightsong is aware because when they clean the scene, there's a spot on the floor, and he's like, "Oh, what are they hiding? What are the priests hiding from me?" And really, that's kind of the whole question of this middle part, because Siri's also figuring out that she has her hair and how she can control it, but also she feels like Susebron's tongue being cut out is a really big deal. Like, why did that happen? And at the very end, we finally get that kind of answer. Well, I should say rationalization from the priest, and whether or not we want to accept that is a different thing, but they kind of explain their case. So a lot of this is characters being uncomfortable and pushed into new directions that maybe they didn't think that they would be. Vivenna clearly is in a different kind of situation.
She's in a tough spot.
Yeah, she is the most least interesting character still for me. We talked about this last time, how I didn't really care for her too much on my first read. I'm not loving these chapters very much here. I'm interested in Denth. Obviously, Vasher being in the picture is really cool, but overall, they have been way harder to read. I love Siri. Like
Yeah,
Siri and
same.
Susebron are actually pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
then of course, like you said, Lightsong's MVP.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I share a lot of the same feelings. I mean, Lightsong, even for me, he like last week I spoke a lot about Vasha, but to
Mm-hmm.
me, Lightsong really shone in this section. Siri and Susebron's relationship's really sweet and interesting. Vivenna, like a lot of the chapters I found dragged quite a bit when she's like petitioning for support and stuff. But once we get the twist of like going into the murderer's den and like her I'm forgetting his name, Perlin is dead, and we see all the animals on the wall, and things start to go really rough for her, and she's escaping, and she's had to sell her clothing, all these things. I'm like, okay, now we're getting like I like where he's taking her, but still it's I don't know. There's something about Vivenna that I find quite unlikable, and even reading from her perspective is quite a struggle sometimes. I'm just like, oh man, I get it
Yeah,
kind of frustrated.
there is, I mean, a great moment where she actually is the one using, like she's learning
Yeah, yeah,
magic,
yeah.
right? And she's able to actually execute these things
Mm.
whenever she uses the one guy to attack Denth. And
Oh yeah, when she says the passphrase for Claude.
Claude, yes,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good moment for
Yes.
her, and very fun to read. I was like, okay, this is sick,
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. But I don't know how much of that is Vivenna's journey as much as it is the magic of it. Like the magic,
Yeah.
I
It's
think is kind of,
tough.
and I like Claude. I don't know why I like Claude, but I like Claude.
Yeah. Why not? I like because the thing is, right? I start to get frustrated with Vivenna, and then you start to think about what her life has been, and she's thinking about it. She's like, "Damn, I've been like raised to be by this guy that doesn't believe in anything I do. Is like the complete antithesis to everything I love and care for." Like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is a terrible lot in life, and I get why you're struggling so much. So I'm like, am I in the wrong for getting frustrated? But there is something like frustrating about reading from a perspective where they're just looking down on everyone, just like these idiots, you
Yeah,
know?
I think you're supposed to feel that way
Yeah.
about her. I don't think, and that's probably what makes her a good character, is that she's
Mm.
nuanced and she's not all good, she's not all bad. And, being thrown into such a weird situation that she never expected to be in her life, I guess it would make sense, for her to
Yeah.
have some conflicting feelings and not come off completely likable. So we understand all that. I think for me, I could just, if there was a little less
Mm.
Vivenna, just a
Mm.
little less, I think I would enjoy, I could enjoy her just a little bit
It's
more. But I
like
feel like we were getting back to her every time I was wanting more from Siri. I
mm,
was getting Vivenna instead.
it's like Vasha. He's very tasteful with the drips and drabs of
Mm-hmm.
Vash you get. To be honest, I'm surprised how little we're still getting. Because in my
Yeah.
mind, him and Nightblood were like the buddy cop movie of this book. And we've had like 3 scenes. We've had like
Mm-hmm.
nothing. So I'm like, did I know Nightblood at all before Stormlight? Because I feel like I did. But so far I don't.
Yeah, I think most of the Nightblood stuff's going to come towards the ending.
Yeah.
But I remember this book being a little bit more Nightblood.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love this. I love this trend of just like you don't hold it, you just throw him in the scabbard and
Mm-hmm.
you just let him do his work. Like there's
It's so weird.
just don't get involved. Yeah, there's something so unsettling about it. And that one guard who's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna try and pick this up." But Lightsong doing his little investigation arc. He's literally Geralt in The Witcher 3. You hold the left trigger and everything starts showing up red. He's like, and he investigates. It's literally that mechanic of like the glowing investigate icon in like every game these days. But I like how it's tied in with the magic and how he's like, oh, this shade of the trapdoor is not that different. It's a bit older. Like I liked how this magic's so versatile. It gives you so many advantages. It can be used in so many interesting ways. But I remember when I first read this, I was so convinced. I'm like, yeah, he was, of course. I wasn't the most experienced reader. I'm like, oh yeah, so definitely he was Sherlock Holmes in his past life. Like, of course. But I'm trying to think now because I know he was like a fisherman and he died on the sea trying to save good old Scoot. I'm pretty sure that's the long and short of it. So I'm like, I wonder where these skills have come from. Why can he
Yeah.
juggle? And I mean, you pick up a lot of skills in a lifetime. So maybe he was just, quite switched on.
Yeah, so he was born to a poor family living far to the north in Hallandren to a merchant and his wife. At the time of his return, the current God King was unable to produce a child, so the infant Susebron was given Peacemaker's treasure and made the new God King after his predecessor. Oh, I'm reading Susebron's. I had the wrong thing open. Well, I was reading it and I was like, man, this is different than what I remember. And that would be because I was reading my wrong tab. Listen, I have like 80 tabs open right now, so y'all just have to you have to deal with it. All right. So before being a returned Lightsong was an accountant named Stenomar, who was often employed to discover fraud or embezzlement by looking through ledgers to find discrepancies, which is where his detectiveness comes from.
Okay.
Stenomar and his niece Tatara would often go sailing as it was a hobby of his brother Laramar. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. During one of the excursions, they borrowed the boat Red Panther and set sail and encountered a terrible storm. In the chaos, a massive wave swept Tatara overboard and into raging waters. Stenomar leaped into the ocean and managed to tie her to a rope, despite barely knowing how to swim. While he managed to save her life, Stenomar was unable to save his own and drowned into the depths. After his death, endowment granted Stenomar a vision of war and destruction. He was offered a choice to return and prevent this from happening, which he took. Very interesting. His return restored faith of his older brother, Laramar, who became Lightsong's high priest. So obviously those facts are coming in the book, but I like the fact, instead of being Sherlock Holmes, that he was looking through ledgers for discrepancies. Like what a square.
Yeah, it's like, okay, sorry, I'm doing it again. But it's like Severance. You see like this little bit of their outside life and how if you take it into a new context, it shows up in a new like unexpected kind of way. So
that's a really powerful thing if you actually think about that, because in our lives we take on roles and identities, like depending on what's asked of us. Like the people at work see me as someone totally different than like what people that listen to this podcast, that my family. And it's not because I'm, putting on a front really. It's just that, you show up and you do your thing and you're successful at things for reasons that you really can't put your finger on. Like it's easy in the application to be like, oh, well, he's a good speaker. He's organized. He has really good opportunities to like, resonate with a guest that he brings on to talk to, whatever it might be. But those can manifest in a different scenario, in a different environment, completely differently, which really shows you that like humans, I'm not even talking about like Warbreaker, like just humans in general can flourish in totally different ways with the same skill set. That's very powerful if you think about it. Like for people who feel like maybe they're at a point where they've done it. I'm talking to myself right now because I feel like this every day. I feel like I've done everything that I wanted to do and everything I'm good at, and now I just am waiting to die. Like that's just how I feel. and you should be able to take that as almost encouragement, I guess, that you can go and flourish somewhere else, whether you were a boring accountant or not. No offense to all the accountants out there. I
mean, you do something for long enough, and like you said with jiu-jitsu, like, is it time for something new, or like, have I just pursued everything I could possibly be good at?
Yeah.
And I kind of had the same thing. I'm like, why not learn how to draw? Like, what is stopping me? Because you can just say, I can't draw, I can't do this, whatever. But like all my knowledge of color and film and all this stuff that I've had through photography and filming for so long, I can apply to that. And it's like you don't realize how much you know until you apply it to something else. It's just,
and it could be something totally different.
Too. Completely different. Like this is
out
like
of
related.
the realm.
Yeah, you don't know. You could
like somehow you become an amazing landscaper or something. It's like whoa, how did I figure this out?
You know what? I think my final arc is power washing, because I did play a power wash simulator and I got 100%. So just when the channel closes, Jimmy's so disappointed in me.
I just
like your speech was way too inspirational and nice. I had to make this trash again. I'm so sorry. Just like I started to get inspired and I thought, this is not us.
Hey, power washing is an important thing. So
you know what?
If you want to come do my back deck, that'd be great.
It's like it's those stupid YouTube shorts. He's like, "Hey sir, do you want a free power wash? I do once a week," and you just watch that freaking thing shine, And you know what? That's maybe he could have. What was he in a past life? Maybe he was a coder cleaning out errors, but now he's cleaning out driveways.
and gutters.
This is my amazing contribution. Oh god.
It's
It's like
5
6
a.m.
a.m. Yeah,
It's okay.
it's so early, guys. Oh, that's on the channel. That's on the channel forever. Great.
Hey, don't forget. I read I was reading Susebron's tab and thought it was Lightsong. It's fine. We all mess up.
Okay. Yeah,
We all
not
mess
on the
up.
same level, but thanks for helping me, man.
Hey, anytime. I'm always here. One thing I do want to say, kind of adding on to that, is that like Warbreaker is pretty much a story of like reversals of what we think is going to happen. Like Vivenna's reversal is thinking that she's going to be given to the God King and all this stuff, and then she ends up, living as a drab. And then we also have Lightsong, who is a god but doesn't really want to be a god and is trying to figure out what he did in the past life and whatever else. And then obviously there's the reversal of Susebron, where Susebron is a god king. He's supposed to be this all powerful person and feared, but they've kept him, almost like mentally neutered and don't let him read, cut out his tongue, all these things. So nothing is going the way it would seem. And that's kind of, it's almost like a big subversion. Like everything's just a subversion, which will play out in the end of this novel as well. Whereas we see the servants are actually the ones I don't want to say in charge, but they're manipulating everything. And which is another reversal. Right.
Yeah, you're so right. And this is the part of the book where that becomes clear to us as a reader. You get inklings of it. And I suppose I'm trying to relate that reversal. I mean, I'm seeing who it doesn't apply to, but I'm thinking of Denth and your favorite Tongfa. That's another reversal. Vasha being actually like this mythological guy from like the past. When
he also seems like a villain.
Yeah,
and he's not really.
No. Well, I'll have to re-familiarize myself, but I don't think so.
I guess it would depend what you see this as, right?
Yeah.
He's certainly not all good, but I think from the prologue and stuff, escaping from prison, killing people, like you're. I don't think you're supposed to look at Asher and be like, that guy's the man. I love him. Yeah. Maybe we do. I don't know, but. Yeah. I think he's set up to be a little bit more, and Vivenna also is fearing him, right? And she is with Denth. So from her perspective, I think definitely Vasher seems like a threat because Denth has sold that to her, which of course Denth isn't exactly what he claims to be to her either. So,
well, the interesting thing is we get Denth's original name here when Vasher and Nightblood are watching. Yeah. And Nightblood's like, oh, it's Varatrelides. And I was like, I wonder how that name relates to the high priest Trelides that Siri is talking to. If it's a name that gets passed down over time, like a famous name.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or like if there's a relation there, because we do find out that Denth has the royal locks too. So I was just trying to, I'm like, these seem like significant pieces to a certain puzzle that I'm yet to figure out. But yeah, it's interesting. I would like to see if we could apply that reverse narrative or that subversion trope to everyone, because so far, like as you're speaking, I'm kind of like going through the list in my head. I think it does like apply to literally everybody, which is really,
I mean, it's at least very core to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about a lot about Vivenna and Lightsong, but for me, I was a little apprehensive about. Well, not apprehensive. I know I enjoyed them the first time, but I was worried. I'm like, oh, these Siri and Susebron chapters still going to hit after I know the twist and everything. But I just find them very, very endearing. And it's kind of fun just as a magical enthusiast reading this, seeing how quickly he picks up on the language. Like each conversation gets much, much more sophisticated. And you just realize, wow, like even though this guy can't speak, with all these breaths, you can just pick up a language in a matter of, however long it's been, like a week. And from like barely knowing the alphabet to full on philosophical conversations with your wife.
Like, it must be nice.
It must be nice. It must be. But he's like, I don't want to kill the priests. And Sirius like, come on, man.
Come on, you can kill them.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty strong. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm a little pressed for time this morning, so we might have to jump into some some span reads unless there was any other big moments. I mean,
we're in the middle of the novel. I mean, this is kind of it. The mystery of the cellar door. Vasher end up with Vivenna. Vivenna, basically living as a drab now. That's where we're at. And Siri continuing to control her hair. It's a big piece for her. And also learn more about Susebron and the situation that's going on with the priest. I mean, that's basically where we're at. The next episode, we'll be talking about the climax the entire time. So,
which is hotly debated.
Really?
Yeah, people are a bit like Warbreaker's great, but it kind of just teeters out at the end. The ending's a bit like a bit of anticlimax, or too quick. It's controversial.
I think I remember feeling like it was too quick, but I actually have a Warbreaker book review up on my channel. I'm gonna have to check it out remember what my initial thoughts were. I remember liking the book. I didn't think it was the greatest book ever, but I liked it. I had a good time with it. We could do this real short span read here. This is from Scott, and we're going to read this one because it's actually about Warbreaker. It says, "Hello, Supreme Oracles. I have a burning question ever since I read Warbreaker. How is it that Lightsong's conversations sound exactly like Wit/Hoid from Stormlight? Is there a connection? They sound so similar. And since Lightsong respects Hoid as a storyteller in Warbreaker, is it possible that Lightsong was returned a second time and took on the persona of Hoid? Could this be?" Thank you, Scott. Scott, a lot of people would say that this is crazy and impossible. But you know what? I will champion you. I love this.
Jimmy.
Christian, you look disappointed.
Jimmy.
What?
Okay, let me get this straight. So are you saying that Lightsong is Hoid? Is this the stance you're taking?
Is it possible that Lightsong was returned a second time and took on the persona of Hoid?
So he had this storyteller Hoid, and then he dies at the end of Warbreaker. Then he's brought back, and he said, "Yeah, make me that dude with the beard." I mean,
all right, it's probably not likely. Okay. What it probably more is that Lightsong is Sanderson trying that more like cheeky tone that he ends up writing like the secret projects in, for instance. Okay. So maybe Lightsong from a craft perspective was him exploring that kind of tone with the character, and that's why we feel he is closer to Hoid than maybe he actually is. They also appear in the same scene together, right?
Yeah, well, that was my biggest point of contention, but then I realized the Spanreed is saying he knew him from that scene, but he gets returned again and then says, "Make me that guy."
Maybe.
But then what happened to Hoid? I mean, I love a good outtake. I mean, maybe. Like I said, Varys is a mermaid, so maybe Lightsong is Hoid. Let's just put it that way.
I think Varys being a mermaid's more likely.
Yeah, maybe. Speaking of Hoid, I have another great span read that I wanted to throw in, which I think is very, very cool. It's to do with the Wave Kings as a bit of a throwback, but I thought this was a very cool question that was brought up. So this one is from Bowl of Hype. I think we had Bowl of Hype on a couple episodes ago because I remember we did.
Yep.
Yeah. So, hey guys, catching up on the reread. I'm on chapter 57, Wandersail, and Hoid says something extremely peculiar, even for him. On page 999 of the paperback, when Hallandren asks him what his name is, he answers, "I began life as a thought, a concept, words on a page. That was another thing I stole, myself. Another time I was named for a rock," which probably refers to Topaz. In Stephen King's Dark Tower series, there are a ton of characters that are self-aware of King. Is it possible Hoid is aware of Brando Sando? I don't think it's improbable. Thoughts? Who? This I like quite a bit. Yeah, do you think that he's self-aware? He's aware that Sanderson created him?
I certainly think that it's a possibility that we get these little fourth wall breaks. Do I think it'll go to the level that Stephen King did in Dark Tower? If you know, you know. No, I don't.
Okay.
But I do think that this could be, I mean, it's obviously a subtle nod, at least, don't you think?
Yeah, well, look, to me, it's if it's not Sanderson, it's going to be certainly addressed in Hoid's backstory books. 100%. Maybe Hoid was a character on a page from his childhood, and then he took on that name.
Yeah.
He stole that persona. Speaking of personas, maybe Hoid was already a creation in his own life, and he's like, I'm going to take on this guy to cope, or whatever the reason is. But it kind of is cool, the thought of like there is an almighty Brando Sando overseeing the Cosmere, and he like there's an actual scene of him being like, yes, Hoid, run free, my child. That would be
Yeah.
so. I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. Honestly, I wouldn't. I
It
would kind of
would be a very tricky thing to pull off well for the masses to like it. I mean, you and I
yeah,
would probably like it just because it's weird, and I
yeah.
like weird. But
It could be a massive miss. But couldn't
yeah,
you see like this giant mystery going on in all the Cosmere books, and then they finally all really get to this point, and it's just Sanderson standing in a plane of white, and he's like, "You have found me."
the question is, like, is this improbable? No, I don't think it's improbable either. Bullfight. I don't know the way it manifests itself, but that's a really good find, by the way. Like,
It's a
this
good
is
find.
a really good find.
We
I
missed
like
that
it a
one.
lot. Yep, we missed a lot.
Well, hey, what I can connect it because we are talking about Warbreaker. He does have a curious line, because like we didn't talk about it. We got the Hoid cameo in this section, and it's not subtle. It's just, hey, Hoid's here. And you watch every Hoid scene like a hawk. What's he doing? He's doing a bit of magic with the sand and all this cool stuff. But he did have a curious line, which I probably need to pull up now, where he talked about two gods fighting or something. I got to find this chapter of where Hoid appeared, because I thought this was notable.
Better hit that Control F and see.
Yeah, I don't. I don't have the ebook for this one, so I'm finding the chapter on the Coppermind, and I shall over to the page. Okay, chapter 32. Let me quickly check. He talked about like something in the past where two gods were fighting, and I thought, oh, this is shard related, probably.
I have it right here. It says, I learned it many, many years ago from a man who didn't know who he was, Your Majesty. It was a distant place where two lands meet and gods have died.
Yeah, that felt really.
Now, what in the hell does that mean?
Where is that? Is that towards the end of the chapter? I'm just trying to find it in my copy.
I'll be honest. I googled Hoid quote from Warbreaker, and it just came.
Smart. Yeah. Okay. So so let's go over it. He learned this where two lands meet and gods died. Is that what that said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
when he says where two lands meet, I'm thinking like Shadesmar physical. That's what I'm thinking. Something more.
Well, yeah, that also makes sense because two lands meet, which are the Parchment and the humans, like a land that wasn't even there, right? Like people who escaped another world and their land came to a new land. So where two lands meet and gods have died, which we know Honor is dead.
Yeah, well, we could think of it that way. Is it about those shards, the Rosharian ones?
Yeah, I think so.
And where two lands meet is also would be like something like the Pure Lake, like one of these little perpendicularities where you teleport, which is something Hoid uses all the time. And where gods have died, I'm just trying to think of like, I mean, that happens a lot in the Cosmere, but I wonder if anyone could pin down for us what exactly he's referring to here, because it feels quite like on the nose.
Yeah, and also Warbreaker takes place probably before Stormlight because of the tie-in.
Yes,
and like there's a Warbreaker 2 before we actually see the people in Words of Radiance. So you know what? It has to be something else.
I mean, I could see it being.
Some people think it's a reference to White Sand, apparently, because Tal'Dain is a tidally locked planet with a belt of twilight where day side and night side meet. Yes. Also sand and dust.
Okay. Well, that seems because he's using that while he tells the story as well. That could be it. Yeah. But White Sand's that one Cosmere book that most people haven't delved into.
Could it be Sazed, though? Possibly. But it's two man's lead. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I did think about Mistborn because I'm like, okay, I mean, shards die there. And then I thought of
the man who didn't know who he was.
That's the most interesting thing from a man who didn't know who he was. That, you know what that reminds you of? That reminds you of Tom, the
That's what
Crate
I was
Herald.
thinking too. There are some people here I'm reading online
Mm.
that are talking. This is interesting. They're saying it's Kaladin, and he didn't realize he was Honor.
Now we're cooking. That's very cool. Wow, like a man who didn't know who he was, like he'd heard it. But I need the context of what Hoid was saying here.
This is also sorry. This is just also
here we go.
Kind of fascinating. Yeah. Two distant places. Some people are saying it's actually way more simple than we're all making it, and that he's referring to Yolen, his home planet.
Okay, well, because like, oh no, that's talking about a preview chapter of the next secret project.
Yeah, and also every planet has a cognitive realm, and only one god has died on Shadesmar, so therefore it can. Or I'm sorry, Roshar. Therefore, it cannot be Roshar.
Okay. Well, look. This is okay. Here's another thing. An argument for Yolen, his home planet, because if Siri asks, "Where did you learn this method of storytelling?" You'd assume Hoid learned this from the very beginning, or at least very early. So I say that's the point for Yolen. And where it says where two lands meet and gods have died, that's the planet where they killed Adonalcium, which was like the one god before we got the 16 shards.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it's referring to. Not as fun as he was talking to Kaladin.
And then some people say it's Elantris. They said they got dead gods and two magic systems in different lands. The door and forging haven't read Dragonsteel or a few later Cosmere stories, so maybe there's a distinctive tell for this. And then, I mean, there's a prediction for everything. So folks need to message us, send us Spanreeds, and tell us what they think.
Yeah, what's your official stance on where Hoid learned this storytelling method? I'm glad I brought that up because that was one of the few things that I jotted down.
Yeah.
Got to focus on the Hoid cameo. It's very different in Warbreaker compared to the others. Like, he's usually a bit like, oh, did you spot Hoid? But this is like Hoid, and he's wearing like, he's just got like a beard on, basically. It just felt kind of funny. He's like, oh, I got to do a cameo here. Quick, let me get my props out.
I'm just going to put this out here for you.
Okay.
The official Coppermine page for Yolen added 5 days ago.
Who
added this quote to the page and said, "Is Hoid referencing Yolen while explaining his style of storytelling to Siri?" And that's so weird. 5 days ago, it was updated, but it is officially on here, and they're saying that it is definitely Yolen. So
all right, hey, case closed. I would say that's to do. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much because I know. Man, this section is so spoiler tagged, because I just can't talk about it. I think I know why they did it though 5 days ago.
Okay,
because
of the chapter reading we got. Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to avoid saying.
I think anyone that's listening to this podcast knows the chapters were read recently. So
yeah, I'll try and find the very specific spoiler tag for that section. But yeah. Look, another bit of Warbreaker done. Mostly
more to go.
Like Jimmy, thank God you knew what you were talking about today, because all I had to contribute was bridge running's a sport. I want to be a power washer, and I'm just ruining your glorious takings on humankind and bettering yourself and finding new skills. God,
I'm full of hot air, bro.
God, he's just on another level. See, guys, you wanted to get rid of Jimmy. Honestly, I'm taking a week off. It's just going to be Jake and Jimmy next week.
Jake and Jimmy.
Oh, I would love to see that. I would love to see a Jake Jimmy episode.
I'm good. You can put me with my nemesis.
Yeah, I know. We got to build up to that. I think the Jake. Look, there'll be a Jake versus Jimmy episode, and I'll be the adjudicator. Yeah, that's when the jiu-jitsu. You either find out jiu-jitsu style or golf. You guys got to pick a common ground.
I'll just choke him with a 5-iron or whatever.
And with that, thank you for accompanying us on another episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next 20 chapters of Warbreaker. We'll see you next time as we finish off this book.
And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. If you have any questions or theories, Spanreed us at lostinroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar. And remember to keep that safe hand covered.